How far would you go to make an impact in the world? This fall, 10 incredible entrepreneurs will visit our campus to tell their stories and share the steps they took to be catalysts for change. The 2021 Entrepreneur Leadership Series, the most valuable one-credit class you will ever take.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Paige and I have the pleasure of introducing Amy tonight. She really is awesome, I can attest. So, Amy Rees Anderson is the managing partner of Rees Capital, an angel investing firm, and the founder of IPOP Foundation, a charity focused on promoting entrepreneurship as a pathway to self-reliance. Amy is also an author and serves as a contributor to Forbes and Huffington Post. She currently serves on 13 boards. Previously, Amy was the CEO of MediConnect Global, a healthcare technology company she grew and sold in 2012 for over $377 million. She has been the recipient of a number of prestigious awards, which includes being named CEO of the Year and receiving the prestigious Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. In 2015, Amy received an honorary PhD. And so with that, we're going to turn the time over to Amy.
Do you guys know how excited I am to be back in person again with all of you guys and not like a Zoom thing or something? Somebody is happy with that. Well, tonight, how many of you guys are setting out to become entrepreneurs? And how many came for the free ice cream? I did not fall asleep for the free ice cream because I love ice cream. It's one of my favorite parts about Utah State. I love a lot of things about Utah State. We talked about that at the dinner we had just before this. You guys are one of my favorite schools to come and visit because you guys have more school spirit than any school, and I serve on all the school boards in Utah. But I have to say, the Aggie spirit's a real thing. So I'm really happy to be here. So, and Dan Clark's a good friend. I will try, I know I'm not as hyper as him, but I'm going to try to keep you interested too, okay? So just to tell you a little bit about my background, I grew up with a dad that was FBI, so we lived all over the country: Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, California, and then Utah. And I actually grew up and came out to go to BYU when I was 17 years old. My goal was to get married and have a bunch of kids, because I grew up in a family of 10 kids, and so school, business, all that stuff was like secondary to. I just wanted to date and have fun. And that's okay if that's why you're here, okay? Because it all goes somewhere. But I ended up coming out, had the awesome hair, and I got married right away, had 2 little kids, and before I knew it, I was a divorced single mom with 2 little kids that had to figure out, like, how do you support a family by yourself, okay? So in my life, I went through a lot of things from that starting point to being able to sell the company, as you just heard, for $377 million. And the reason I like to kind of tell the background before I ever give a talk on any subject is because I want you to know that wherever you're starting from, you're probably in better shape than I was starting. And I had no clue what I was doing with my life, and it turned out okay. So you guys are going to be fine, okay? So let's start there. Fear was a big thing for me. I had a lot of insecurities. I was afraid of most everything. I didn't have a lot of self-worth, right? Just all these things where I was like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, everybody knows what they're doing in life, I don't understand this econ class, I'm dropping out because it's way too hard. I was like, literally, I must be the dumbest one in the class all the time. And so I had this total fear I had to overcome in my life. And one thing I want to tell you guys, it's okay to feel afraid, just don't let the fear stop you. Because being afraid is kind of normal, right? It's kind of normal to be kind of scared or intimidated. And it's okay to be scared, just never let it stop you. Because it's not meant to stop you. It's just meant to make you go, okay, I can overcome this. And then you get more and more courageous the more stuff you overcome. That's how it works. But some of the best advice I got when I was trying to figure out what to do was from my grandpa. He actually was a professor here. He met my grandma at Utah State in the library, and he became later a professor. He's an engineer, brilliant man, has now passed on. But one of the best pieces of advice I got from him when I was trying to figure out, like, what do I do in my life, is he said, Amy, just get up, do something, do anything, just make a start. Now that was some seriously valuable advice, because you don't have to have it figured out before you start. Most of the time, even if you think you have it figured out, it's going to change like 100 times along the way. But the thing that matters is that you actually forward movement, like that motion of making decisions, moving forward, and it's okay to pivot. My dad was going to be a dentist, and he ended up getting recruited to the FBI Could there have been a bigger disparity, like scary dental guy with a gun on the table? Like, it just, those don't go together, right? But like the important part was he was setting out to do something, and then life will veer you and it's okay, but just be moving forward. One of the things that I did that was the most valuable, and I try to tell this as many times as I can at every talk I give because it really has changed my life, and that's a goal poster. And I know you guys probably think it sounds hokey, but when I'm done with my talk, I'm hoping I will have convinced you guys that you need to go home and make a goal poster after this, okay? Everybody in this room. And I have millions of posters from all over the world people have sent me from talks I've given and articles I've written for Forbes, and you would not believe the awesome, miraculous stories that came from their goal posters. But mine started out when I was young, and I made this poster, and I decided, okay, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? Okay, so if you guys were to ask yourself, what would I do in my life career-wise if I wasn't afraid? Okay, the answer to that's probably going to be the right answer for you. And for me, I sat down, I made this poster, and I was like, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I have no idea what else to be. Right? I dropped out of econ. I mean, come on. So it's like, I was like, I don't know how to do math very good. I can't do this very good. I did so many things I wasn't good at, but I was like, you can be an entrepreneur because anyone can be an entrepreneur, right? So I thought I'd be an entrepreneur. And if I'm going to do that, I want to win Entrepreneur of the Year award, and I want to, be really successful, and I want to be on the cover of magazines, and I want to meet Bill Gates because Windows was brand new. This was like 1989 when I was in college. So way back when, right? So these were some of the things that I made this poster, and I didn't think about it. So we're going to come back to it later in my talk. If I was going to be an entrepreneur, I had to come up with an idea of what I was going to actually do. So career-wise, I was like, well, what is a dumb idea? How many of you guys have had an idea and then you're like, it's probably dumb? Yeah. Or you go, like, if it was good, someone else would have done it, right? I want to point out a couple of dumb ideas that have gone on to make a lot of money. Slanket. Does not sound good right now. Snuggle up in your little blanket with your sleeves. Dumb idea started by a kid who wanted to play video games in college, and his mom took a sleeping bag, cut holes, put arms on it. Not a dumb idea. Sold a ton of money. Okay. Pillow pets, right? I know y'all have them. Don't act like you're too cool because I have kids 25 and 28. They still have them to this day. Still sleep with their pillow pets. But they make tons of money on pillow pets, right? There's a lot of things that might sound like a dumb idea, but if something sells, it's actually not that dumb of an idea, right? There's some brilliant business ideas that never sell. So when it comes to being an entrepreneur, you got to have a company that's going to sell. And trying to find an opportunity is scary. People are like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur, but how do I find how to do a business? Here's just some quick tips, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but really pay attention to what people complain about. That's the best way to find ideas. Okay, I have ADD. I take meds for it, no shame. So I had ADD as a kid. I was like, I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. I get bored fast. So that was like a God-given talent, in my opinion. And I used that to look at things that I thought were annoying to have to do because they were super repetitive, right? And I was like, well, so I was working in doctor's offices, and I had to get up every day to go make photocopies of people's insurance cards, and then I had to pull the chart, and I was like, this is so dumb. Why can't they just have something in the computer? I mean, like, Windows is new now. You can put pictures on the computer. It's not just like a black and white screen. And you guys are like, you have no idea what I'm talking about, do you? You're so young. Okay. We had cassette tapes back then, and boom boxes. It was awesome. Good times. But the point was, I hated that job, and I hated doing it. And I was like working in the medical office going, if I don't like doing this, other people are probably bored doing it too, right? So I started to think, why couldn't you have software that did some of this stuff for you? I didn't know software. I knew nothing about software. But I knew that there was a process being done all over the place that a lot of people were probably bored doing, just like I was. That's what led me, as we go forward here, I'll explain that's what led me to my first idea. The other thing is that, like, the more people you can talk to with the same problem, it means the market size is bigger and bigger. Everybody needs healthcare, right? It's a pretty big market. So for me, I was like, well, everyone's using medical offices and they're using software. That's a pretty big market. It's when you think of your business, the reason you want to think of a really big market is because then you don't have to sell as much of that market to be successful. So as an investor, when I go to invest in companies, I'm looking at that. How many customers potentially would buy this product? You might have an amazing product, but if there's only like 50 people in the world that need it, it's probably not a really good business for me to invest in, right? You just can't make enough money doing that. So pay attention to those things. And I found, especially, I was raised by a family where service was really important. We were very dedicated to like helping others and making the world a better place. And I find that we in life do better if whatever it is our business is doing has a positive impact. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not talking about running a charity. You know how charities get funded? It's for-profit companies that made a good profit and did good in the world with it. So there is nothing evil or shameful about making a profit doing good. What I did in healthcare made an impact in healthcare, and that ultimately made people's lives better. And the more you look at whatever business you're going to do about the impact it'll have, the easier it is to put your heart and soul into it because you believe in it, okay? The other thing is, you guys, the first mouse doesn't usually get the cheese. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that second mouse that has the win because the other guy's, in the trap. So when you go to think of a business, you don't have to think of a brand new idea. Go look at what's being done and compare. So I would go out, when I started in the medical field, I was looking at different softwares, and I was like, I would pull up each of the different systems, and I'd be like, what do I like about this one? And I'd write it down. And what do I not like about this one? And I'd write it down. And I started to make a list of, if I could have a software that did all of these things that were the best of every other product out there, that'd be pretty sweet. So you don't have to come up with something that's never been done before. And in fact, when I go to invest in businesses, I'd almost rather that it was something that's been done before, because it proved to me that that market worked. So I don't know if any of this stuff's helpful for you guys. I'm gonna like rapid fire stuff. We're gonna be going like lightning speed here. Bottom line was, at 23 years old, I decided to start my first company. I started out of a 10 by 10 room in my house, raised some money from my dad and my brother and a couple family members, and it was like the hardest money I've ever raised, because my dad's serious, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't mess around. So it was really intimidating and scary to do that. But that's how I got started with my business and running it out of the home. And I still remember buying my first copier. I like broke out in a cold sweat, because I'm like, that's $5,000. And for me, I was like a poor starving single mom. Yeah, I mean, it was scary. So how did I figure things out, right? College dropout. And I didn't drop out of college because I didn't care about college. We just couldn't afford for both of us to go when I was married. And one of us had to give it. So I had 2 kids, and he went, and we finished. And I would never recommend that. I think education is important for everybody. And the way I look at college is this: I can't promise you're going to be like more successful because you went, but I can promise you're going to have way more tools in your toolbox because you did. And even if you don't go on to use them in business, you will never regret the knowledge you gained. So just keep that in mind. I think school's an incredible thing. Okay, figuring things out. Here's the secret sauce. I went and found really, really smart people and said, can you like dumb that down for me? You guys have no idea how effective this term is, okay? First of all, what it does is say to the other person, I'm acknowledging you are smart. Therefore, you do not have to prove to me you're smart by talking in big words I don't understand. You follow me? So I would go to people that were way educated in their field, and I'd say, I don't understand hardware for a computer, right? Like, can you dumb it down for me? And when you do, can you relate it to something I understand? Right? Because you could be talking about something in computers, and if I don't get it and I don't know how to relate it, you might as well be talking like some foreign language to me. I don't understand any of it. So I had a brother who's really good in hardware. And I said, dumb it down for me, right? Because you're smart, I'm not, so dumb it down for me. And he said, here's the deal. You've been to a library before? Yeah. Okay, well, the size of the library, and you have all those racks of books in there. The size of the library where the racks of books can fit is your number of gigs on your hard drive. The bigger the space is, the more books you can fit in there. I'm like, that totally makes sense, right? Like, I can relate to that. He's like, and then your table in the library where you open the books, the size of the table lets me know how many books I can have open at once. That's the RAM on your hard drive. I'm like, dude, this is so easy. Like, you went to school for 4 years for this? Like, took me 2 minutes to learn, right? So if you use that little trick with people and make them simplify it for you, and don't be ashamed to say, I don't know what that means. You know that econ class I dropped out of at BYU? Guess what I found out? No one else in that class understood it either. They all just sat there and acted like they did. So here I am thinking I'm the only one that didn't get it, when nobody knew what they were talking about, but we were all too embarrassed and ashamed to say we don't understand. Whereas I would have given anything if one person in the class would have actually asked the question, because then I would have been like, oh, I'm not the only dumb one, right? So never be afraid to ask, and know that if you don't get it, most people don't either in the room. And you'll see adults all the time. I'll be in the room with brilliant business people, and you know what's awesome? Is the more successful they are, the more quick they are to say, I do not know what you're talking about. Please explain that to me. So that's a little trick that if you guys use this, it'll get you so far, and you will be able to take their knowledge from all these years and boil it down into a little phrase, okay? So you got your money's worth for tonight with that one advice. That's how I ended up going on to start a software company. As I had people explain it, I figured out the idea, I wanted to solve the problem, and so I designed the software, the front of the software. Now, I didn't know how to code, so I had to actually hire people that knew how to do software coding, right? So my first company, what I did is I decided to find someone else's software and resell it. So I signed up as a reseller, where they developed it and I just had to sell it. My first client ever, Logan, Utah. That's right, people. Love Logan. I'm telling you, I love Logan. Okay, so that's a true story. So I was selling their software, and I started to become a really big reseller, and then I wanted to develop my own software because I couldn't get them to put the things into it that I wanted. But I went and negotiated a deal with them, and I said, hey, you could still own it. Can I hire some developers, and I'll design the front, because you guys are missing out on features we could have that would be really cool, and I was a really big reseller for them. And so I said, would you let me do that? And they said, yeah, we're going to give you $2 million a year, and you can hire developers, and you can develop it, we'll still own it. That was the track I was on. I thought that was like the biggest win in the world, right? For me as a young person running a company, I was like, that's awesome. So I hired a bunch of developers, and the company I was selling for ended up in a merger with another company. They had falsified some financial reports, and they ended up getting indicted by the FBI, like right before I was going out to sign the contract with them. So guess what happened to my deal? Well, the FBI seized all their stuff, so everything was on hold. And I was devastated because I had hired all these people. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I don't even know how to make payroll in 2 weeks, right? And up until then, I'd just been bootstrapping my company. And what that means is I would actually sell the product, and then I would go hire somebody, and then I'd sell the next product and hire. So I was doing it all just with the money that I could make. I wasn't raising outside money from that other initial little investment I had. So we all sat around in a room. And this was one of those like life-changing moments where I'm like, guys, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, I was scared. And one of my employees goes, well, there's always failure. And we all started laughing, and we're like, that's totally true. Like, okay, let's just jump off the cliff here, try this ourselves. And if it goes bad, we can still go work at a Wendy's drive-thru if necessary. That's an honorable job, right? Who cares? We could start again. We could start again if we have to. You know what I'm saying? So we were like, let's do it. So I was like, okay, now keep in mind, I've been running the business profitably because I was bootstrapping it, but I didn't know anything about raising money. I had never done it in my life. Right, so I went on Google. I should get an honorary PhD from Google is what I should get, Google University, because literally I learned everything on Google. And I went and I Googled, how do you raise capital? And it said, well, you have to have a business plan. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is, right? Never even heard of that before. You guys, I was doing my financials in QuickBooks, and I didn't even know what the term EBITDA meant, right? I had no idea until I was in a meeting with my dad, and he was like, hey, you have 38% EBITDA. That's amazing. And I'm like, really? I don't even know what that means. So see, you can be successful and figure this stuff out along the way. It's okay. So, so we ended up Googling it. It said, write a business plan. So I Googled, how do you write a business plan? And it said, well, here's this little software you can buy for $80 called Business Plan Pro. So I downloaded it. It asked me questions. I answered them, printed out a business plan, and started. Then I'm like, well, who do I send it to? It said venture capital. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I Googled those, and I just started shooting that business plan everywhere. And I remember sitting down with one of them that had come to town, and he said, okay, so how soon do you need the money? And I'm like, before payroll, which was like in like a week or two. And he started laughing. He thought I was kidding, but I was dead serious. Ended up getting the investment. Okay, so we ended up developing our own first internet software for physician's office for billing and things. And then I went on to do medical records things. And my last company, MediConnect Global, was actually doing healthcare data records. We were transporting records from all over the world, from whatever form they were in, into one similar database, and then doing data analytics across it. So my phase of my journey was like little steps at a time. And every time something terrible and tragic happened, it would end up getting me to jump off a cliff I never would have jumped off before, right? Like, I don't mean that realistically, like, you know, I'm saying like, but I would never have gone on my own and developed the first internet-based medical software if I hadn't been forced to, because I would never have taken that risk. I had 2 little kids to feed. I was terrified. And I didn't have a lot of confidence yet. I was still gaining that confidence. So when you have things go bad in your life, chances are that is what's pivoting you towards something that's way better that you just never would have tried on your own. Okay, so don't look at them as bad things, because as I look back, I can tell you it never really was bad. Went through a bad divorce, you know, ended up with a really awesome guy from Idaho. I mean, it turns out okay, people, right? He's right there. Oh, that's hilarious. That's him clapping for himself. Okay, humility is something he's still working on. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys some tips, all right? Some tips that I think will help you a ton. Number 1, you gotta know what you stand for going into business. That was the most important thing. I was so blessed to be raised by parents who taught me the value of integrity. And that was like the foundation of everything. Without integrity, you got nothing, okay? And so I had decided early on, I am gonna live with integrity, I'm gonna do business with integrity, and even if it means that it's gonna go bad, I'm still gonna do it with integrity. And that became, for our company's values, what we really adhered to. And the number 1 rule we had on the board, we wrote, do what's right. And then we started to get like, in these situations where it was, sometimes it's scary to do the right thing, because you could lose a customer, or you could have to fire an employee, or whatever. It's really hard, and life throws all these challenges at you. So we changed it to say, do what's right, let the consequence follow. And that was our reminder that we were gonna do the right thing, even if it meant the company went under, even if it meant we lost a client, it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, success is gonna come and go, but your integrity's forever. And we wanted to remember that. And I will tell you guys, this is not just a fluff thing. The number 1 most financially valuable asset you have sitting here in this room is your integrity. And if I hadn't been doing the business with integrity, I would never have gotten the investors that I did. I would have never gotten the sale price that I did. Your integrity is worth a fortune. So do not compromise it for anything. The next thing is, when it comes to your product or service, if you're gonna start your business, make sure you're developing a really great solution. And the best way to do that is go talk to the paying customer. Who's gonna be your paying customer? When I would create software for companies, I would go sit down with a customer and I would say, hey, tell me what the problems are you guys are trying to solve. See, we're always trying to think of our own idea. Why would we do that? Let's go to the person who's gonna pay us for a service or product and ask them their idea, and then we'll go and do it. And then we'll make a ton of money off it, right? It's way smarter, okay? So I sat down with a client and I said, walk me through it. And the client said, well, if we have this problem, we're doing, like, let me give you one example. They had nurses all over the country that were looking at medical records. And so these nurses would print them out and they'd circle and highlight them, and then they'd ship them all to the corporate office. It was like killing trees like you would not believe, right? They had no better way to do it. So the client said, if we had a way to do it in the web, and keep in mind, technology's come a long way in the last few years, but back then this was not being done. So I was like, okay, we'll develop a product. Okay, and this is a two-part solution here. I'm going to tell you, listen to your customer, talk to them, ask the problems, and then go back to the customer and say, if I could create this for you, would you pay for that, and how much? Okay, so I sat down with the customer and I literally mocked up some screens and I showed them on a PowerPoint some fake screens and I said, this is what I can design and develop for you. It's not done yet, but I will do it. Will you pay for it when it's finished? So I was getting customers to commit up front, which de-risks you completely. Okay, so go and talk to people and make sure that whatever it is, the goal is, you're trying to create something that makes their life easier, better, faster, more efficient. Right? And you guys have such an advantage because technology is changing so fast that companies that are huge that might have had an awesome solution a few years ago, now new tech has come out. Like when I started my first software company, everything was in like DOS and Unix, which was literally like a black screen with white cursor. There was no pictures, nothing, no graphics. Okay, as soon as you had the ability to scan and have images in Windows, companies that were these old DOS-based products had spent so much money on their technology, they couldn't pivot. It was, you'd think, they have all the money in the world, but they also had a massive issue they would have had to redesign. So a new company, up and coming, was able to do it faster, quicker, more efficient. So those are opportunities you guys have. Look at the way people are doing processes and say, if I was to change that process using new technology, what would I have designed differently? And that's another great way to get a business idea. On simplicity. So one of the things with this nursing problem I gave you, we decided, okay, let's develop this annotation system. We'll take all the medical records, we'll have them all scanned in, and these nurses can pull it up on a screen and they can do all these little cool features to it, right? And we had 1 million little features in there. Rolled out the product and none of the nurses would use it. And I was like, I don't get it. This is like the sweetest app ever. Like, what's the problem? So I went and sat down with some and I said, why are you not using this? And they said, there's so many icons on there, it freaks us out. Like you have so many little buttons up there and we don't like that. So if you could just get rid of all that and give us a great big button that says sticky note, highlight, and circle, then we'll use it. Now that was a tough conversation with my engineers because no software engineers want to dumb down a software. But the reality is, as sexy as it was, no one was using it. So we did exactly that. We just hid all the stuff we created and we gave them a big button literally that said sticky note, highlight, circle, and guess what? They were using that product off the charts. And it taught me that being simple and keeping it easy is so much, it's cheaper to do as an entrepreneur and it's so much smarter with the customer. Okay, you get adoption so much better. So don't overcomplicate your solution. Okay, raising capital. I'm gonna tell you now, I'm an angel investor. After I sold my company, I now angel invest in entrepreneurs, right? And you're gonna be like, why would she tell us not to raise when she's investing in companies? It's because this is what I honestly believe, and integrity is everything to me. I don't think you should raise a lot of money when you're starting your first business. And I'll tell you why. It's because what was a want quickly becomes a need. When I only had Payless shoes for $15, I was fine in life. And then I got my first pair of Christian Louboutin red bottom shoes. And I was no longer fine. And if you don't know what those are, they cost an awful lot of money compared to a Payless shoe, okay? And so they were these really beautiful shoes with these red sexy bottoms to them. And all of a sudden, I didn't just want Christian Louboutin shoes, I needed Christian Louboutin shoes. That is how life works. When I was young, I was so excited to go to a dollar movie. Then I had money and it was like, well, the dollar movie's kind of lame now. You know what I'm saying? Like everything becomes, it's a need. I was perfectly happy back then. So your needs are going to become bigger as your financial book becomes bigger, which means you're going to spend everything you raise and think you need it when you actually don't. And those needs then turn into an obsession. It's my closet. I'm just saying, it becomes like out of control. So just start small and be smarter. You'll be more disciplined. You'll come up with more creative ideas, so don't raise a ton. How you're going to communicate with investors and customers. I'm just going to give you 3 tips. Before people are going to listen and engage in a conversation, they want to know these 3 things. Is it going to be painful? How long is it going to take? And when you're done with this conversation, what's my exit? Okay, do we have any guys that are married in this room? Any of the men that are married? Okay, if your wife says, can we talk? What happens to you? Is it kind of a dark, scary place for you? Yeah. Or if she says, hey, I need you to help me Saturday. Does it kind of freak you out a little bit? Okay, so now let me give it a different way. Pretend I'm your wife. Hey, on Saturday, I need you to run to Costco with me. We're gonna grab 2 things, and when we're done, you can go play Xbox. Are you in? You're totally in. Look how much more relaxed he is. He's like, yes, I'm in, right? Okay, same thing happens. If someone calls me as an angel investor and leaves a voice message and says, hey, Amy, this is Bill. Can you give me a call back? I go into that same dark place this guy did when I brought up that example. It's like this dark hole of I don't even know how painful it's gonna be or what my exit is. But if somebody says, hey, Amy, I just needed to talk to you for 2 minutes. I had one quick question, and when I'm done, that's all I need from you. I'll totally call him back. Use that in the way you communicate with investors, with clients, everybody. Let them know how painful is it going to be. And by the way, in dating life for the women in the room, it works so good with your men. They'll do anything if you just tell them up front. This is what I need. This is what you got, and then you can go play. They're fine. Okay. Going back to the integrity. It's okay when you're meeting with investors not to know it all. I get a lot of people that come in and they want to pitch me stuff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, I got all that solved. I thought about that. It's all going to be fine." And I freak out because I'm like, "You have no idea what you're talking about," because I have now met with 100 companies doing the same thing you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's it actually is a turn off, not a turn on, and it makes you question their integrity. I like to give the Bentley analogy. He's a pretty decent husband. He bought me a nice little Bentley for my birthday one year, right? If my kids, when they were teenagers, would have come up and said, "Hey mom, I want to take your Bentley, it's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be good," right? No, right? But if they came up and they said, "Hey, I want to borrow the car. Now here's the deal. I know it's expensive. And I know that I have to be an incredibly safe driver. Plus I know there's other drivers that are on the roads that aren't that great a driver, and I'm gonna have to watch for that too." Now, what does the difference in how I would respond? How does that make me feel? It gives me more confidence in them because I'm like, okay, they're aware of it. I'm still not letting them take it, but it was a better try. So my point is that with an investor, it's the same way. I want to know, look, there is competitors, and there is people that have more money and could do it faster and better than you. And I want to know that you know that. And I want to know that you're going to be teachable and willing to listen and say, if there's something you don't know, don't pretend you know it. Say, "You know what, I don't actually know the answer, but that's an awesome question. What would your thoughts be on that?" Now you've just told them you value their knowledge. Do you see the difference in these little tiny ways you go about things that could totally have a huge impact? Okay. The other thing is credibility isn't gained by chaos. I can't tell you how many times we meet with entrepreneurs and we're like, "Okay, get us a copy of the contracts you've signed." And they're like, "Oh, they're in my emails." Right? What does that say to me? It says, number one, you haven't even probably read your contract. I want to ask you guys a question. And Dean Anderson and I were talking about this the other day. I want to know how many of you guys have actually installed an app on your phone with a click-through contract and just hit accept without reading it. Just be honest. Okay. I want to point out to you guys, you have no idea what you just said you were legally going to be bound to do because you didn't read it. But from a matter of integrity, if you were to break those things, you just broke your integrity. And it's one of the things that scares me the most for young people. I was raised with this dad that was like, "You don't sign anything you don't read. You got to know what you just said you would do," right? Because you got to live by that. Otherwise, you are breaking your integrity. And it became such a valuable part of my job as a CEO as I read everything and I made sure I knew what the contract said and represented. And then, not only that, I would take them and I'd put them into spreadsheets so I wouldn't forget, because I'm like, I have ADD, I'm going to forget what I just signed. So I would put it in a spreadsheet with all the little things. I'm like, okay, I have to remember, I have to drug test my employees every this many months, and I have to do a background check this often. And I started tracking it in these spreadsheets, and then I turned it into a database, and then we created our own little product. So every time we signed anything, we made sure we knew what it said and we were aware of what we had to do, so we didn't drop the ball. And when I went to go sell my company, and they asked for all this data, because that always happens when you go to get an investor or sell your business, I was able to upload that data in 24 hours to them that would have normally taken a company a month or more to put together. What do you think that did for my credibility with the buyer? So be organized. And like I said, I have ADD. Is my least strength in life is that I am completely all over the map. So I actually think this is something that it was really hard for me, so I know you guys can do it, okay? Because you guys are better than me. And remember always when you go to raise money, if what you have is so good, people are going to pay cash for it. You're going to get buyers. Your friends are going to tell you it's cool until you say, "Okay, give me $20 for it," right? And then they're going to be like, "Well, it's not that cool." So just make sure a paying customer will buy it. So that's the best way to raise money at a good value, is if you've got sales. Always go for the sales first. Okay, you can do a lot with a little. You'd be surprised how creative you can get. We had to implement strategies to get people excited about security in our company, so we came up with a cool spy theme, because who doesn't like spies, right? I mean, it's kind of cool. So we had spy names for the different departments, and we did spy decor and logos, and none of that cost a lot of money. But it was a really effective way to show that we were a secure firm. We did, if you killed it on the job, you got your star on the wall, right? Little things like that don't cost money. You can do so many fun, creative things. For marketing, my company, the year I sold it, we did 90 million in revenue. I had 1.5 times FTEs, one and a half people in marketing. Because guess who I would use? High school kids. I would literally go to my kids in high school at Alta High. I know there was a couple Hawks earlier in my lunch. And I would be like, "Hey, I'll give you pizza if you can give me a new idea for a billboard. I need to hire people. What's a good recruiting billboard," right? You can get so many good ideas from young people for free, so just give them a pizza. You don't got to spend a lot of money though. The other thing is make sure to surround yourself with people who have good values. Okay, you can teach a skill, but it's hard to teach a value, especially when someone's an adult. Not saying it can't be done, but it is harder. So at MediConnect, when we would go to hire people, instead of hiring for their skills, we would hire for their values. And we would post it and say, here's the values that we have, and I'm probably standing in everybody's way over here, sorry. I should have gone to the side. These are the values we have, right? And if you have those values, come work for us. But then no one wanted to apply because we were healthcare technology, and we were like, how do we get people to want to apply? So I had some cheap commercials done. I had my employees go home and film their dumbest talent, and we showed them at the movie theater. So here's a couple of them. There's music playing right. Watching that, you're going, I can work there. Like, if he gets hired, so could I. Right, here's another one. Those were actual employees, by the way. So people watch that and they're like, oh my gosh. So it was a way to say, come and work here if you have good values, and we will teach you the other stuff, right? And we also found the best way to find really good people with values is we would watch. If I had someone at the Wendy's drive-thru that was nice in the service, I'd give them a we're hiring card. Because I just interviewed them when they didn't even know they were getting interviewed, right? What better way is there to find people? I mean, we would look at people in their normal, natural, all of our employees had these cards, and we were like, if you ever see someone go the extra mile or show any of our values of integrity or hard work or all those things, give them a card, and let's hire them. And some of the employees we hired had zero business background. We had a mink farmer, top guy in sales. We had a welder who was like one of the best customer service guys. I mean, we really found that, like, don't prejudge people. You have no idea what their skills actually are gonna be in the setting. Communication is super important, you guys. This was a hard thing for me because I tried everything as a CEO, and as my company grew from a few people to like a couple thousand people, it was really hard because I'm like, they don't know me anymore. I don't know them. You have all these people working for you, and you're like, how do I make sure they know what I believe, what I stand for? And it was a struggle because a lot of people in your life are gonna like act like knowledge is power. So get employees in a company that are like, oh, I know what the boss thinks, when they actually have no idea what the boss thinks. But they just want their coworkers to think they do because then they're more powerful, right? So I realized, whose fault is that? Well, it's my fault. Because if I'm not communicating for myself, someone's gonna communicate for me, and it probably won't be my message. So I learned communication is critical. So I started blogging to my employees 10 years, it was 10 years before it was 2010, what is it now? 2010, I started blogging to my employees. And it was like a daily blog, and it was just like really not even a professional. It wasn't like I'm the boss and I'm so smart. No, it was like, okay, I totally screwed up today, and here's what I learned. Or I made this mistake, and this was what hit me hard. Or I said, like, husbands, don't let your wife's car run out of gas because it really says you don't love her. That might have come from an actual example. But the point was, like, it was just real. I was very real and authentic. And those two students that got up, I was like, you guys just gave my talk for me. I really didn't even need to give a talk. Because authenticity is one of the most powerful things a person can do. How many of you guys have a friend that knows everything? Kind of a know-it-all, yeah. And how often do you want to help that friend? Like, never, because they already know everything. But if you have a friend that's like, man, I could totally use your help. Do you want to help them? Yeah. And I started realizing as a CEO, because I was young, right? When I first started out, I was young, and I thought I'd be all cocky and act like I know everything, and then people will want to follow me. I was dead wrong. People wanted to follow me when I stopped being cocky, and I started to get real, and I was like, yeah, I am terrified, but it's my job, so I'm going to figure it out, right? I'm going to figure it out, but I'm scared, and I'm going to try to do the right thing, and I hope it works out okay, and pray for me. I don't care who I pray to God. You can pray to whatever higher power, but please have prayers for me. No one was ever offended by that. Never got sued for that, right? Like, I learned that it was really critical to be honest and genuine, and it's okay to tell people I don't know, but I need your help. You will inspire them to want to get behind you and help you succeed more than anything else you do. By the way, my goal when I started that blog was to go for 10 years. Even after I sold my company, I kept blogging. I hit my 10-year mark last August. 5 days a week, every week for 10 years. So that was a huge accomplishment. And if you guys ever want to learn any of the life lessons I learned over 10 years, or hear the stories of all the things he did really dumb as a husband, because I like to share those too, it keeps him in line. You can go to amyreesanderson.com/blog, and they're all there, okay? The other thing I learned was you gotta make it personal, right? My clients would log in, they'd see a portal, and they'd see this little photo stock person, and I was like, that's not even personal. So we started taking pictures of the people in account management, putting it up there, and now the clients felt like they had this personal connection. And then we were like, that's kind of boring every day to say the same thing. So we were like, let's make it fun. Because jobs are not fun. I mean, it's like work is hard, right? So we're like, let's make their life a little more pleasant. And we would put in fun costumes, and people loved this. It was like these little things that don't cost a lot of money, but they make a big impact. We also, I cannot stress this enough. How many of you guys could make me a list of what you've gotten for your birthday and Christmas for the last 10 years? Nobody, okay? How many of you guys have a box at home with handwritten cards in it that you keep? Look around the room. Everybody's got a handwritten box of cards at home. Number one most meaningful thing you can do for somebody is a handwritten note, okay? I'm not talking about a text that says, LOL and whatever else you guys say, but a handwritten note. So we actually would send out handwritten notes to clients and vendors and everybody all the time. Just little notes. Hey, hope you had a good day today. Or hey, thanks for being so nice on the phone. You wouldn't believe how powerful this is. Remember people's names. Remember their kids' names. Remember some little fact, right? This will help you so much in business with investors and clients and everybody else, employees. And the most important thing is just be likable. Nobody wants to hang out with Eeyore, but everybody likes Tigger. So just be a nice person, because people will do business with people they like. I will pay more money to buy the same product from a vendor or like a company that I like the person I'm dealing with. I don't care that I'm paying more because I'm like, you deserve it, I like you. That's true, he'll tell you that's true because he gets really mad when I do it, but I'm like, I don't care because they were nice. So people do business with people they like. And those are some of the ways that we actually built this huge company that we then went on and sold for that money. It wasn't rocket science. It wasn't some ingenious thing. It's not because I'm smarter than anybody else. It was these kind of human things that really made all the difference. So if you guys can follow some of those in your life, and these can apply to whatever job you go after, you're going to be successful. A couple last minute tips, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. Number one, put yourself in the running. Okay, the fear thing, I talked about it, is real, and I know what it's like to feel insecure and like I don't belong here. I would go to events and be terrified because I was like, number one, I was a woman in technology back in like the early 90s when like that was unheard of, right? And then I would be like, and I'm also really young and everyone's not taking me serious. And I was terrified. And you would not believe how powerful it was when like at one of the events, someone came up and they're like, hi, how you doing? And they shook my hand and they're like, tell me about yourself. And I was like, I love you right now, right? Like I didn't actually say I love you, but that's how I felt. But the point was, it made me realize, I bet there's other people in the room like me that were so terrified that if I started to be the one to go say, hey, that is a gorgeous sweater you have on. No one's gonna be offended by that. And other people are uncomfortable. So go and be that person that puts yourself out there for people. The other thing is I had an employee, he like applied for this position so far above his pay grade, it wasn't even funny. I was like, who's applying for this high level position? And he wasn't even qualified at the time, but the fact he put himself in the running, every time a new opening came up, I would think about that guy and be like, how's he doing? How's he moving up? And he ended up getting the job eventually and was running that whole department. And that never would have happened if he didn't put himself on the running. So literally put yourself in the running. It doesn't matter if you get the position or don't get the position, or if you win the competition or you don't win. The fact is there is exposure that happens and there's experience you're gonna gain that is invaluable to you just because you put yourself in the running. When my son, who's the one that went to Alta? Where's the person that went down? Right here. Okay, when my son was starting, it's a huge high school, P.S. in Sandy. I mean, there's like a couple thousand kids there, right? So he's going in as a freshman, and I'm like, he had a flyer that said they were gonna like do the student body officer for the school. And I'm like, you should go and do that. Like you should run for student office. He's like, well, what is it? And I'm like, oh, it's really cool. It's just fun. Just go do it. He came home and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna kill you, first of all, because that's terrifying. I'm not gonna, I said, just do it. Don't even care if you win. Just run and have fun with it. And he did. And he didn't win. But you know what? He had such a great experience in high school because he put himself in the running and he knew all these people, and eventually he became the senior student senator at Alta. None of that would have happened if he hadn't like put himself in the running. So like I'm saying, don't focus on, oh, I don't want to do it because I'll be embarrassed, or I don't want to not win. Who cares? Someone's going to be in that audience that you needed to beat, or something. You're going to learn some skill that's going to make you smarter, and that's what matters. So take these opportunities at Utah State. You guys have incredible opportunities. I made my kids, when they were going to college at BYU, I was like, you have to go to every lecture series, if it's not your class or not, because you're going to learn so much just in the room, and then go talk to the speaker and say hi. Who knows what's going to come of it, right? So just put yourself in the running. And when you make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes, my only thing to you guys is to say, it's okay to make mistakes, it's how you learn, but don't make them on your integrity. Everything else, go ahead, not on your integrity, all right? And when you do make it, it's all about how you handle it. You gotta learn from it. You gotta own it. Do not try to like skirt away. We made a huge mistake with one of our clients we were doing $10 million a year in revenue for. It was terrifying because I was like, they're gonna fire us, and then I'm gonna have to fire a bunch of people. It's gonna be the worst thing ever. And I called the client and I said, hey, we made a mistake. We fixed it, and here's what we did to put safeguards in place so we won't repeat the same mistake twice. And instead of firing us, they thanked us and gave us more business. Okay? So the best way to take the wind out of someone's sails is just own your mistake. Be honest about it. Be upfront. And that goes for your personal relationships too. Okay? Don't try to deny it. The most powerful thing you can do is be authentic, vulnerable, honest about your weaknesses, whatever it is. Just be honest and own it, and then learn from it. So just don't make the same mistake twice. You guys, if you're going to make mistakes, make different ones, right? So that you don't because that's just dumb to keep making the same mistake over and over. You're not going to get anywhere. So just only make it once. And remember that success is not about the money or the title or any of those things, right? I've got all the fancy things in my life. That is not what success is. For me, success is if I keep my integrity and I'm trying to live by those values, then that's success. So the other stuff doesn't matter. And checking your anchor lines daily. One of the fun things we did is build a houseboat after I sold my company, right? And we go to Lake Powell, and when you get to Lake Powell, you have to anchor your boat. There's all these anchor lines. And we get all anchored in tight, and we're all secure in case there's a storm, right? But then every day the water goes up and down. Things are changing. Their circumstances are changing. And if we were to only check that boat the first day, we'd end up high-centered on the rock or floating in the bay. That is how life is when it comes to your values. Right? You're going to have all these things going on, and sometimes you get so busy you're not thinking about it. You got to check your anchor lines daily. Ask yourself, am I doing the right thing for the right reason? Did I screw up today? If I did, what am I going to do tomorrow to be better? And really check that every single day of your life, because that's going to keep you where you need to be, and you're not going to end up floating out in the bay somewhere. And don't give up, because it's going to be hard. I went through so many hard things. I mean, I have 40 minutes to explain all this stuff to you guys, and there's not time, but literally went through some of the craziest hard things you can imagine in my life. And there would have been a million points I would have had a reason to give up. But someone gave me this little sign on my wall that said, everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. And that got me through more bad things. And like I told you earlier, the bad things, I see so many kids today giving up because something goes wrong, and I'm like, you guys, oh my gosh, imagine if I'd given up. I mean, I wouldn't have had that houseboat, you know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. Then, you know what I mean, though? I could have given up at any point. I could have had a reason to think this is the end. Right? But I didn't give up, and things were better because of the hard things. And when you look back at what you're the most proud of, it's not the easy wins in life, it's the hard things you actually overcame that you're going to be the most proud of, and I really mean that. Let's end on the goal poster, and then it's all time for you. So be thinking of good questions, because you're getting a free book today. I brought you all a free book, okay? So think of good questions for me, please. Power of the goal poster. I told you I made that poster as a young girl, hung it on the wall, didn't think about it. 8 years later, I was moving offices, and I was like, oh my gosh, everything on my poster happened. Everything. I had won Entrepreneur of the Year. I've been on the cover of Inc. magazine. I had all these things that happened. I met Ballmer, Gates retired, he counts. So all those things that happened, I was like, this is amazing, but it's probably just a coincidence. And then my dad came to me, and in our church, my dad had been called to go and serve in Ghana, Africa, in the temple there. And he was like, Amy, you should come out, and I'm going to perform your wedding in Africa. In the ceiling in the temple. And I was like, Dad, I'm not even dating anyone. I have 2 kids. I'm running a huge company. I ain't got time for that, right? I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. But he gave me the picture, and I thought, well, I'll just stick it on the poster. Who knows? And less than a year later, I was in Ghana, Africa, getting married to, this guy. So I was like, okay, so hold on. Maybe there's something to the poster. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, okay, maybe, it's like before that I was it was kind of coincidence, right? But I'm like, okay, maybe. So I'm like, maybe, this was 14 years ago. I'm like, maybe I need to make a bigger poster, right? So I did. I sat down 14 years ago, and I was like, okay, so I want to sell my company for a ton of money. And I want to angel invest in other entrepreneurs so I can help them do what I was able to do. And I want to start a charity that will help empower people to look at entrepreneurship as a pathway to self-reliance. Because it was entrepreneurship that helped me put bread on the table at a time. I had no idea I was going to feed my kids. Right? I didn't have outside help. It was 100% me. So that was scary. And I was like, I want to encourage people to look at that as a pathway to becoming self-reliant, because when we're self-reliant, we have confidence, right? I don't want a handout from somebody. I want to earn it myself, because that's what's going to make me grow as a person. And so I was like, and then I want to go see the 7 wonders of the world. I didn't know there's more than 7. I just found this postcard, threw it on there. Why call it 7 if there's a ton? But anyway, these are the ones I found, okay? And then the plane, because who doesn't want that? So over the next few years, all of a sudden, I started going on these trips around the world to these 7 wonders, and it wasn't because I was planning it around the poster. It was just different boards I served on, and I had an office in one of them, and all these things, and I was like, well, that's weird. And then I sold the company for all that money, and I was able to start Rees Capital, my angel investment firm. And then I was able to start the IPOP Foundation, which stands for In Pursuit of Perfection, which was my reminder that God doesn't expect us to be perfect. We're just supposed to be pursuing it every day. So that was why I did that foundation. And helping entrepreneurship for people. And I got my life back with my husband and my 2 kids, right? So things were good. And then I was like, my husband's like, well, what are you going to do now, right? And I was like, well, I don't know. I just sold my company. I was like, well, I want to build a dream house. So I started a goal poster for my dream house, and these were some of the pictures. It's actually a very large PowerPoint with a whole bunch of pages. But I did all this thing of everything. That was Mariah Carey's closet. I was like, that's awesome. So I did this goal poster. And within 12 months, I was able to build the actual house. Okay, I know. You should have seen my daughter's wedding. She had like a 186-page goal poster I made for her wedding reception. It was amazing. But I was like, these are, like, everything I stick on the poster comes to life, right? Everything. So I was like, I don't know what to do next. And my husband was giving me a hard time about it. I'm like, well, I know I want a bunch of grandkids, right? Like, I want a whole bunch of grandbabies because I only got to have 2 kids and I want like a ton of grandkids. And I was like, and I want both my kids to get married in the temple because for us as a family, that was important to me. And I thought it'd be fun to go to Europe. I'd never been there. And I didn't finish my education. I dropped out and it bugged me, right? Not because it was like going to do anything for me financially, but it's like I love to learn. I love education, right? And so anyway, I was like, I'm not going to put that on the poster because I'm not going back to college. I don't have ADD. I can't sit through the class. And my husband kind of was like, just put it up there. So I did put it on the poster. And then everyone wanted me to write a book for my blog. So those were the things that went on the poster. I hadn't even finished the poster. And within a couple of months, I got a phone call that I was getting an honorary PhD. I started crying. They probably thought I was such a baby, but I'm like, they didn't know it was on my poster that I hadn't even finished yet. It was already happening, right? And my kids won't call me doctor, but I've tried. Europe, all of a sudden, over the next 24 months, we went to all these places in Europe. Like, it was crazy. We were traveling the world, and both my kids got married in the temple in those next couple of years. And I had, 4 years ago, grandbaby number 1 was born, little Flynn, named after Tangled, Flynn and Tangled. We love Disney at our house. And then 2 years ago, grandbaby number 2, Magnolia, after the Mississippi State flower, because they met on their mission. Nothing sketchy, but, you know, my son and his wife. Look, it's common now. So they had baby 2, and then, no joke, just a couple of weeks ago, both my son and my daughters had babies a day apart at the hospital at Altaview, and I have little Hazel and Sky. Do you love those little Subway wraps? Those are so, what brilliant marketing is that? Can we talk about how brilliant that is? President and Sister Oak sent in those little wraps, and I was like, what a sweet thing. So I have baby 4, I'm up to 4, right, on the goal poster. The goal is, I got to have a ton more because they each get $1 million on the 8th child, no negotiating down from that. Look, a grandma's got to do what a grandma's got to do, right? But it's so fun. And then, I was writing that blog and writing for Forbes, and they called and said, would you publish a book? So I did, and the book is out now. It's called What Awesome Looks Like, and I did the launch right here at Utah State University. So today, like I said, I got all of you guys' books. The word awesome is a mirror because it means you're the one that's awesome. And it's like, my son calls it my ADD guide to success because every chapter is like 3 pages and they all stand alone. So you can just read one a night or whatever. So my husband and I are donating those to the school so you guys can have those tonight. And my final advice is to say, don't limit the picture in your head. Because what you guys see of yourself is up there on the left. That's what I saw. Like, I couldn't even balance my own checkbook, you guys. I bounced so many checks in college, they had to have my dad fly out because I was only 17 and meet with the bank president. True story. Like, that's where I came from. And I went on to do those incredible things. But I really believe that your life is meant to be a masterpiece. So when things are hard, stick through it. Don't be afraid. Keep going and just get it done. And if I can ever help any of you guys, that's how you can follow my blog or get in touch with me. And I'm going to open it up for questions. And then we're eating some serious ice cream because I love ice cream. So was that helpful information, you guys? Okay, let's start here and then we'll come here.
On your goal posters, do you ever put goals behind them, or do you just put the picture?
I put the visual picture, and it's interesting. I didn't do it that way because of some research I was aware of. Later, they've come out and talked about the research on this, that when you put the picture down, your chances of actually accomplishing the goal exponentially go up. And I think it's because there's a part of you, when you can visualize something already done, like, it makes it where your brain just moves you there. Does that make sense? So the pictures are very powerful. It's still good to write it down, like, initially, but I honestly think now I just do everything in pictures. I don't write anything. I just do all pictures. And my kids have done them their whole lives. Like, it's a big deal in our family. And people from around the world have sent me their posters, and the stories that you would not believe of things that have happened in people's lives. It's not just me. This, like, legit works. So do the pictures. Someone right here had a hand. Where was it? Oh, yeah.
It's not a question. We had this thing for a class where we had an interview with a successful entrepreneur, and he told me for the first time, like, don't be like the smartest person in the room, like, be the dumbest person in the room. That's how you learn. And I haven't heard anybody else say that, so I thought it was really cool how you just said, be dumb, learn. Like, don't have this giant ego. His company was not about his ego; it was about the company's ego. And I just thought that was really important.
Well, thank you. And I think what matters about that too is, like, I want to be teachable, right? I want to be teachable because otherwise I'm not going to get better. And life is all about getting better all the time. And so it's not that I think I'm actually dumb or that you're dumb. I'm saying it's okay though to, like, when I say dumb it down, it's really my way of honoring their intelligence, right? But it's like, it's okay, don't feel dumb. Like, that's the thing, don't feel dumb, because that means you're teachable if you don't know and you're willing to listen. And it's such a good quality, you guys. You'll come so much further. But thank you for that. Other questions? Yeah. So there's two things. Someone told me once, it's really good to get nervous because it's how God reminds you to get on your knees first, right? Now, in my life, I believe in God. So it's like everyone has a higher power they usually turn to, whether it's God or something else. It is the universe's way of helping you remember to be humble when you get nervous. So don't let the nerves like make you freaked out. Like, I don't let it freak me out. I'm like, oh, that's just my reminder to say a prayer first, right? And the other thing is I learned to stop worrying about what other people think. And I don't say that in a negative way, but like I went from being a young girl to being in a bad, abusive kind of marriage situation to, like, I was so living my life for what everybody else thought. And like, their opinion of me mattered. And one of the things I realized is you could do everything right and someone could still think negative of you. I mean, look at social media today, right? You don't even know people and they'll attack you. They don't even know who you are. Okay, that's going to happen your whole life. And if you let other people's opinions shape your decisions and what you're going to do, and that even applies, I have two of the most amazing parents in the world, but I even with them, I was like, I only care about what God thinks of me. Like, at the end of the day, for me, that's what I focus on, is what God thinks. And if he's proud of me when I get on my knees at night, I don't care if anybody else is. I don't need that validation. And when I stopped needing that validation from other people, I started making better choices, and I was able to like see more clearly what was right and wrong for me to do. And that really changed everything, because then it's like, it's easier to please him. Like, he knows everything and he's perfect, and he also knows everything in my brain. You know what I mean? So for me, that really gave me a lot of confidence. And I knew if I was doing the right things for God, that everybody that did matter in life would also be there for me. Does that make sense? I know that's kind of I'm not going to lie to you guys and like make it non-churchy because this is a school, because that's, for me, I believe in God. But I think everyone has that higher power. Look to what that source is in your life. And if you're proud of that, then don't worry about the rest. Because you can't control it, right? You can't control it, but you can control that one. Who else? Anyone? Yes.
Just like, what's one piece of advice you give like our generation? Like, what's one wish you had like collectively for our generation, or like a tip that you see? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a ton of them, but I think part of it is the big one of the don't give up thing. Like, the whole suicide rate and all that stuff that goes on in your generation, it scares me to death, because I'm like, they don't think of how many people I was able to employ and how many families I was able to feed because I actually didn't give up, right? Like, look at the impact my life has been able to have on others, where now I get to go speak and talk to all these people. But if I would have gone back and stopped, I wouldn't have impacted any of those people, right? So I feel like for your generation, there's number one, get off of social media as much. To be honest with you, like, it kills me to watch, because it's like it is such a negative thing these days. And you can use social media for good, but oh my gosh, people care more about the likes they get than what's happening in their life right in front of them. And I think that's crazy destructive, I think. I stopped watching the news the last several months at all. I know it sounds crazy, but I literally was like, it was so depressing and discouraging. And I was like, I got to stop. I got to, like, because I can't focus on positive if I'm so sucked into the negative. So I pulled back from that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of, for your generation, it's so overwhelming in your lives. And it's like, you guys are hammered with stuff all day, every day. And try to separate yourself from that stuff and like focus on, I'm going to do good in the world. I'm going to work hard. And I'm not going to give up. And when things go wrong, I'm not going to look at it as failure, because it's not a failure if you learned something that made you better. And every mistake I've made, I got better. And like, when I said that about looking back, I'm the most proud of myself for having not given up and overcoming things. And does that make sense? So for your generation, like, try to unplug from some of the negative stuff. And it goes back to that letting other people's opinion of you dictate how you're going to behave and act, right? Like, I mean, my daughter-in-law talked to me one day about it. She's like, oh my gosh, there's all these mom blogs and it makes me feel like I'm a terrible mom, right? Like, am I not doing it right? And I'm like, we're letting everybody else's opinion decide what we feel is good. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to describe, but it is a big fear for your generation. And I also think there's a perception out there that you're like this evil person if you try to run a company for a profit. And that's just not true. Like, Like, that's literally what funds all these charitable efforts, is people that made a good profit, right? And so don't be afraid to make money, but make it for the right reason. The fun things are fun, right? The shoes and the house and the boats, those are fun, but that's not what matters to me. And if it got taken away tomorrow, I would know who I was still. And that's what matters. Like, that's the thing no one can change. Does that help? You guys are, like, you're so much better than you think you are. Like, you're so much smarter and you're so much more capable. Like, the stuff you're going to be capable of facing in your lives is going to blow your mind. I had a little trip back to DC and got to see the house I lived in when I was in high school. And I was like looking up at the window and I'm like, man, if I could go talk to the girl then that I am now and tell her how much she's going to survive and get through. Like, 'cause, you know, you just don't know, but you really will get through it. You guys are amazing. You're so much more resilient than you know. So don't be afraid of that stuff, right? Who else? Anyone else? They're like, we just want ice cream. Yes. Yeah, you.
Yeah. Is there a habit that you practiced over the years that you feel like you couldn't live without? Pick one.
It's me. She can't live without it.
I'll be honest.
I couldn't help it.
The one that I think empowered me the most, and I would never have guessed this part, but when I was writing that blog every night about what I learned that day, and I was, like I said, it's not if you go read it, it's not professionally done. Literally, like I talk about, don't put your pants on out of the dryer because it hurts your self-worth. You know what I'm saying? Like it's real. Like we're talking, it's real. And my kids always laugh because they're like, okay, Mom, that was a little too real sometimes, but it's just real. But me having to write it every night, like forced me to look at my day no matter how crappy that day was. And there was some dark, crappy days. But it forced me to look at it and go, what did I actually learn today that I can put out into the world that will help somebody else? And me having to do that every night, I didn't realize at the time what it was doing for me. I was trying to like let others benefit from what I learned. But what it did for me is it forced me to change my thinking. Where instead of seeing everything as like a negative or a bad, it was forcing me to find what was the good that came from that and put it out there. And it's like retrained my whole optimism in life and the way I view life and the way I view hard things and my courage and my ability to be courageous. Like I'm so much more brave because I know that no matter what I take on, I'm going to learn from it and then it's going to help somebody. So like I think writing a gratitude journal, even if you don't blog, like writing a journal that's like, here's something I learned from the crap I went through today. Because you're going to go through a lot of garbage. There're just a million bad things that happen in life. But they're like they make you better, like they make you stronger. They suck to go through. I'm not going to diminish that, right? You're like, oh, if I didn't have to go through that, I'd been better. But I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through it, right? And I'm here to get better. I'm here to become like this better person. And I can't become better unless I go through some really tough stuff. So I think that for me was a habit I would highly recommend. You don't have to write it publicly. It can be as little as one sentence. But write down at the end of every day one thing you learned that day that like you're actually like you something you took from your day, if that makes sense. What else?
There was a question in the center.
Center, yes. About what?
I was going to ask about habits too.
I'll say one other thing. Is balance an issue for any of you guys? Yeah, like that's like my biggest issue too. So there, we're on the same page. Now we're all in the same boat together. When it comes to balance, and being a single mom of 2 kids, because I didn't marry him until my companies were really big, and I'd already done all that. I had like 8 years of being a single mom, running those businesses alone before I had help. In fact, when we got married, he's like, oh my gosh, how the heck did you do this on your own? I was like, you know what? It's because there's a lot of stuff in life that you're stressed about right now that does not matter, okay? And I had to literally go from worrying about everything, like, you know, having like the perfect house and like everything being all perfect in my life. And I just was like, dude, if it doesn't keep me out of heaven, I do not care about it that much. And I stopped worrying about stuff that doesn't matter, right? So like focus on the stuff that's really gonna make an impact for you in the long run. And the other stuff, you guys let it go. It doesn't matter, I can buy my bread, I don't have to bake it, I'm still going to heaven. You know what I'm trying to say? Like let that other stuff go and just focus on what really matters. Because the other stuff's stuff.
I think a lot of people let like their insecurity stop them from going after something like big like this. What advice would you give to somebody overcoming those insecurities?
I think we overcome the insecurity by trying the thing that scares us, right? And you guys would think, oh, she's been so successful, she has no insecurity. Are you kidding me? I'm like so insecure. Like I am not good at physical exercise. I hate it with a passion. I wish it was against my religion because then I could like not do it ever. thought about starting my own religion that doesn't do any, but I hate it, right? And it's intimidating. It was so funny because one of the guys that was one of my investors who was on my board of directors when I had my company, so he saw me do all these incredible things in business. And they invited us to go on this bike ride with them, okay? And they were gonna ride from Stowe, Vermont up to Quebec, Canada on a bicycle. I've not been on a bike since I was like 10 years old. It had a banana seat, tassels, and a little bell. That's how long it had been. Like, I really hate exercise, okay? They invited us to go. This was just 4 years ago. I was terrified. Like, I was literally terrified. And we were having dinner with him, this board member, and I said, I can't do this bike ride. Like, because I suck at riding a bike. I'm gonna look really stupid. I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna crash. I'm probably gonna kill myself because I could walk across a football field with bare feet and I would be the one person to step on the nail. Like, that is who I am, okay? And I was terrified. And he looked at me and he's like, are you joking right now? He's like, I have watched you do the impossible in your life and you're scared about riding a bike, you're insecure about that? And I was like, yeah, because I suck at that. I'm really good at the business stuff now. And he's like, that is mental. That is all in your head. And I was like, he's probably right. So I went on that bike ride, and I did fall once. But I had a blast, and I killed it, and yes, I probably looked super stupid, but I had my jammy pack on. If you don't know what that is, get one. It's a fanny pack with a boombox built in. It is awesome. So I'm like riding through these like farm fields with my little, M&M going, the clean version. I'm like riding along and I'm like, I'm doing this, right? And it's like, it gave me, like, I was like, how could I be so successful? And I still was so insecure about that. And I think we don't, like I said, it's that anchor line daily thing. Like, you have to do it. Like, do something that you're scared of and realize it's a mental game and try it. And if you look stupid, okay, at least I proved to them I was going to get out there on the bike and try it. And to be honest with you, I did it for him. I hate that stuff. He loves it. And one of my dear friends, Charles and Liz Koch, you guys probably heard of Charles Koch. He's like 8th richest man in the world, nicest man in the world. Love him. His books are fantastic. If you haven't read him, I highly recommend his book, Good Profit and Believe in People. Get those 2 books. But I was sitting down with Liz, and they've been married forever, right? And most people in that situation don't stay together, as you know. And I said to her, what's the secret to a happy marriage? You guys have been together forever. Like, what's the secret? Now, excuse my language, because I'm going to quote Liz. She's like, watch the damn football game. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I hate football. Charles loves football. So when we were first married, he'd watch the game, and I'd run off to the spa and go shopping with my girls. And I finally realized this isn't about what I like to do. It's about showing him that I care about him. So she watches the game with him. And she's like, that's the secret to our marriage. And I was like, okay, I'll go on this stupid bike ride. But the reality is, it gave me confidence. And guess what I did? I went and bought an e-bike, which I paid more for than the other store had, even though it was 2 salespeople, because the person at the other store was nicer to me and told me about numbing cream, which if you need numbing cream to do an activity, I'm not sure why we're doing it, but she was so nice to me. I paid like literally 1.5 times for the same exact bike because the salesperson was so sweet to me and knew I was insecure and made me feel better. So try those things that scare you without worrying about if you look stupid, because you're not doing it to look smart. You're doing it so that you can actually like feel a little bit more courage. And I had a blast, you guys. Like, I'm not saying I want to go ride bikes all the time, but I did buy one. So, I'm just saying, that's how you overcome the scares and the insecurities, is to try it and not worry about what other people think. Anybody else?
We have time for one more question.
Oh my gosh, this is so much pressure on the last person. I will personally autograph your book to you. Okay. I am a huge fan of, like, I listened back in my day, we used to have cassette tapes. I wasn't kidding about that. Like, I would listen to like Brian Tracy and motivational speakers, Zig Ziglar. I would listen to all those guys, and like, instead of driving in the car and listening to music, I love music, obsessed with music. Big music family. We have impromptu dance parties all the time at our house. But I would literally listen to those motivational speakers, and oh my gosh, they're so powerful. That kind of stuff, and do it at the times where it's not extra burden on your day because you're already busy. But when you're driving somewhere, when you're walking across campus, listen to motivational speakers. Seriously, Brian Tracy's awesome. He was like one of my go-tos. He's like old for you guys, but it's still an awesome message. I gave my son a copy of it. He was like, dude, that was awesome. Like, listen to that kind of stuff. It will like help boost you up and keep you excited. And then I have a motivational playlist. So like, when I die, I want the piano guys to come and do the fight song, Amazing Grace song at my graveside. Because like, that's one of my, like, the fight song, or like, I love stuff like that where you have songs that are like your power songs that get you in the mood to try things. And I also am really good at closing my eyes and pretending I'm Wonder Woman. That got me through a lot. I'm super scared, but I'm gonna close my eyes, pretend I'm Wonder Woman, and I'm gonna go do it, and then I can go back to being insecure Amy. And that is a really good motivator that also helps with fear. And now I have a huge Wonder Woman collection, and I got to meet the original Wonder Woman in person at the premiere. It was awesome, and the new Wonder Woman, but you know, I still love the original. And Chris Pine, which was, I mean, he's not as cute as you, but it was pretty tremendous. So those are things I do to motivate myself. Okay, they said last one, but we're gonna give one more.
So as an angel investor,
Yeah.
what industry do you see the most opportunity in right?
Biggest opportunities, I mean, healthcare, no question, affects everybody. You have a massive aging population, right? And there's a ton of problems to solve there. I have parents, it doesn't matter how old they're never gonna wanna move into a place where there's assistance because they're like, wanna be independent. And that's not just my parents, his dad's the same way. He lost his mom, his dad's like living alone on a farm somewhere. Like, that's a problem to be solved because you have people like me worried about that generation, right? And then there's them that they're like, we're not giving up our freedom. Like, you know, the Braveheart scene, can't take my freedom. So that's a huge area for solving that problem. All of the different, what to do with data, there's so much data today, and figuring out how to analyze it in a way that's meaningful is huge. So technology, healthcare, we try to focus, and it wasn't just because of my background in healthcare, it was just because that industry is so big and there's so many problems to be solved. So we look for those types of things, and I think for you guys looking at the different industries out there and finding how tech today solves something that's being done already. Like that's where we look for the big opportunities. And real estate's always good because at least there's an asset behind it, right? Thanks, guys.